So I'm Christian Watts with Magpie, and my co-host today is Laurie.
Hey everyone, I'm Laurie Timoney with Insightful International. Happy to be here today. Looking forward to chatting a little bit about news and talking to the team at IWander. So yeah, thanks for joining.
And we have two French brothers, which is confusing because they sound English, but they're French and they're brothers and they're co-founders. We're going to talk about news today, but we're also going to talk about IWander. But you guys want to give us a quick intro, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Antoine and I'm Marius, and we are the co-founders of IWander. Obviously, half French, half Irish. We can't forget the Irish side in us. Grew up in the UK, hence the accents. But we're building IWander, which is essentially kind of your AI travel companion for in-destination exploration.
So Antoine, does that mean that you like beer and wine then?
Yeah, I go one for one. Guinness and red wine only.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Typical Laurie goes with like the drinking side of it. Most of us would have gone with the football, like which team and all this stuff, but you went straight with the beer and wine.
I know, I don't know why, but being from Boston, the Irish population is massive here.
Yeah.
And so as soon as somebody says they're Irish, it just immediately goes to like every single bar and selfie. So yeah, sorry about that.
I'm actually in Boston next week for the Google. There's a Google exec forum or something next week. I would have hit you up, but I'm only there for like one night and I'm going to get out again. But let's start with a few news stories. Laurie, first of all, you just got back from IPW. IPW, for those that don't know, is the biggest US trade show, probably always has been, and I think for most operators is the most important trade show of the year by a long way, or it certainly used to be. How was it this year?
It was definitely different, definitely quieter. So I know that IPW officially came out and said there were nearly 5,000 attendees, but I do question that a bit. Like most people on the floor were thinking it was closer to maybe tops 4,000. There were international buyers definitely weren't there in terms of like certain countries. Germany, very underrepresented. So clearly the Germans are like, nope, not doing it. Obviously Canadians weren't really there in attendance in a great degree. Asia most certainly didn't have the same level of attendance. The interesting thing though that I found is I had great meetings. I was there as a buyer, so I was meeting with suppliers, and honestly, I felt like the meetings were actually better than usual because there wasn't as many people there, and you weren't screaming over yourself or, just to be heard. And people seem to genuinely want to see you, which, you've been there, Christian, where sometimes the suppliers are like, they want nothing to do with you if you don't have an appointment with them. And even when you do, sometimes it doesn't always work out. But people are not happy about the fact that they've really cut costs considerably. So, they're not producing the same type of show they were. They're obviously trying to make do with less. But on top of that, if you're what they call an exhibitor buyer, which is essentially somebody that, let's say it's a get your guide, where they've got buyers there who are meeting with suppliers, but they're also a distributor.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your position, then you have to buy a booth that costs, up over $10,000, $10,000 to $20,000, depending upon the size of your business. And some of the booths just sit there unmanned because nobody is going to sit at the booth. They're all running around going to appointments, which is essentially what was happening in my case. And even the domestic buyers don't get the same level of treatment that they used to. Like they have to pay for their hotel now, they didn't used to. So people are getting a little bit testy about the fact that they have to spend more money on the domestic side, but the international buyers are not coming to the degree that they were in the past. So I don't really know how they're going to combat this, to be frank. I feel like the show has, really started to decline over the last few years. It's still a really important show. if you're a supplier in the US, it is an important show to be at because there's a lot of opportunity to meet with people. So I still believe it's a good show. I do hope that US Travel can figure out how to, manage cost and still deliver a good value. And, hopefully one of these days, the international traveler will decide to start coming back to the US. Probably not this year, though.
Not for a couple of years, maybe. It's the first one we've missed in 20 years. And we talk about it every year. We have a serious chat and talk about, is it still worth doing? And every year, because so many of the resellers now are platform-based, right? Or an algorithm-based. So you don't need that one-on-one time. There's that, and then the costs are going up. But maybe
Mary,
you don't need 6,000 people. If you have 4,000, you only need 20 good meetings to have a good show, right? So maybe the numbers aren't that important.
Yeah, exactly. Marius, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued because in London, Europe, I'd be actually quite intrigued what the perspective was from, the general attitude and mood. Like, were people kind of bullish about a recovery at some point next year, or a little bit bearish about how long is this going to last? And how were people basically what was the general mood and consensus about the future of
I mean, honestly, I think that most of the people that I spoke to that are from the States are very concerned. The decline, I mean, I think there was a 5% decline in international arrivals in 25, and in April, it went up to 14%. So the US actually is now I think it has the most declining international traffic of any major global destination right now. And so in terms of optimistic, I think we all know we've got at least a couple more years of this. We all know that. And I think people are not trying to fool themselves into thinking that it's coming back next year and maybe not even the year after that. But I think people feel like it is temporary, and that, you still have to keep at it and grow your business. And, there's still a lot of opportunity there. It's just that I mean, most people are experiencing major declines in business, but that's also in part to Google search too, and what's happening there. So, I think it isn't just about the international market not coming. I think it has, we've got inflation. There's all kinds of reasons, right?
The world's so accessible. Well, the world's not accessible through the Middle East necessarily, but the world's generally so accessible now. There's so many destinations for people to go to, so many choices, so many easy flights. It's very easy just to say, oh, I'll save America for 2028 or whenever they feel better about visiting. There's plenty more places. That didn't used to be the case, right? It used to be kind of Spain and Greece and 3 other places, and that was it. But there's many choices. Let's move on to something positive. Should we talk about the Instagram Go next?
You mean TikTok Go?
TikTok Go.
Is that positive, Christian?
I'm not very positive.
If you're on TikTok, it might be positive.
At all. I don't actually do TikTok. I do Instagram a little bit. But the news, right, is that they've partnered with everybody, so you can book now directly on TikTok. What do you guys think about that? Is this going to go anywhere? Is this going to be, was it another lot of noise without any conversions going to happen?
Well, I think it's interesting. Our sister actually works at TikTok, and so it's quite interesting. She was brought in to basically replicate the TikTok shop model, which works so well in Asia, in Europe. And I think what they're finding is that if something works really well in Asia, it doesn't always translate to the other part of the world. And especially with travel, where I think travel, there's such a massive gap between the inspirational piece where people might be looking at content and searching for content and just basically inspired, looking at amazing videos, bookmarking it for later. But then that purchase window is very, very small, and it's a massive decision. And I think making sure that you get both pieces right. I think it's going to take a while to get right. So I think there's two aspects on this. One, just because worked in Asia doesn't necessarily mean that it will translate in Europe. And then the whole travel angle as well. I think, I'm not sure. I don't have too much context on that, but I think, let's wait and see. But yeah,
we should have had your sister on the show. Is she in the house? Can we get her up here?
I might give her a call. She might make it for the last half hour.
What's the biggest thing? The fact that it's stuff in Asia doesn't work here, but also it's shopping is shopping and it's travel is travel, as you say, right? Isn't that the bigger thing? There's no evidence that any travel converts from social to transactions, is there?
I think that's the thing, and I think the whole kind of TikTok shop model is basically like, super small interactions where it's like, you get seen, they show you, an item of clothing or content or FMCG, and it's amazing how quick that conversion rate is. People will actually go from view to buy in 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. I think travel is very, very different, where you're going to take a lot longer to be inspired. You need to be, basically going to the States and, or the States, wherever you're seeing the content at that specific moment, specific time. It has to be like right product, right place, right time. And for travel, I think it's a very different category, which is why, I think I haven't actually seen what the platform looks like, but I think that's where the insights.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Marius. It's travel is a big ticket item, and it's different than buying a lip gloss or something on TikTok Shop is quite a bit different than buying a trip that could cost you $3,000-$4,000 or something. Maybe experiences might have a better shot because they're less expensive, but to your point, in Asia the audience has been used to WeChat, right? WeChat Pay. They've grown up with that. They're always buying things within an app, and they've been doing it for a long time. Whereas the kind of European, North American market, that hasn't really been the case. And the other thing that I think is interesting to think about is these creators, they're earning commissions, right, for selling certain things. And I think it's going to be a trust issue too. Like if you feel like you're being sold something and somebody's earning a commission, even now, quite frankly, and I know it happens all over Instagram, but as soon as I see a creator telling me that I need to buy this kind of hair shampoo because it's going to change my life, then I don't believe them, because I know that they're making money off of it, and why would they tell me that, right? So it's like anything else. I guess it's like any other advertising, really. I mean, do you believe it? Do you not believe it? But I think when people are buying travel, they're comparing websites, they're comparing prices, they're looking at reviews, they're always bouncing all over the place. So they feel like they're super comfortable before they hit the buy button. And I just think it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts all of travel, especially the bigger pieces of travel. Maybe the experiences will be a different story. And especially if it's a seamless, you don't have to think about it too much. It's kind of like okay, yeah, I get it. It's a walking tour and that's cool. I'll buy that.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? You only need one contingency to make you not hit the button, whether it's a travel partner or a calendar or something, and then you just save it for later. But the amount of lip glosses I bought just on the fly because I thought it was selling me a new technology, I've got a drawer full of them. But let me.
Kirsten, that's a whole side of you that I did not need to know about.
I don't have any lip. I've never bought a lip gloss in my life.
But just on that, I think the more interesting part here is actually using video as a conversion tool, where I think maybe TikTok won't be the place which those transactions happen, but I am surprised that travel sites, travel brands, OTAs haven't actually harnessed video content a lot more within their actual listings. And I think what it might actually do is almost invert it around. I think the transactions might still happen on, the traditional OTA sites or the travel websites, but maybe importing that content a little bit more and having that as almost like an inspirational piece before the booking. I think that maybe it might actually do that shift to actually make video a bit more prevalent in terms of that transaction, that whole transaction piece.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
makes a lot of sense.
It's funny that the video feels like it's so far behind. You know, at Arrival, everyone's saying, why is there no video first OTA? And then Douglas always says, well, the TikTok of travel is actually there. It's called TikTok. But it's not prevalent on Get Your Guide or Viator or any of these other sites, right? A lot of them take it, but it's not really been pushed as far as we all thought it might be.
I think, doesn't it have to do with the fact, at least what I've always heard is that it has a lot to do with the fact that it slows down the site, and so that's the reason why they avoid it. I mean, because otherwise it would seem like an incredibly easy thing. Like you'd want to have video wherever you possibly could, but I suppose if they just get too much of it, unless they can combat that speed or lack thereof, you know, I would think that it's something somebody's got to be thinking about fixing.
Yeah, I always think of Agoda when I think about this stuff, because I speak to some people at Agoda, usually at WIT in Singapore, and because Agoda's based in Bangkok, right? So they've got the Asian market around them. That's their biggest market. So they see what works and doesn't work, and they're part of booking. So they think if it worked, it would go straight into booking. But they've always said, listen, this stuff doesn't convert, it doesn't work. You distract people, and it doesn't help the conversion. I thought of a really cool segue. No, I know what it was. It was the universal cart. So maybe the saving of the TikTok or the Instagram or whatever into a cart. And my cool segue was that Google just announced their universal cart last week, which I think they've announced before they released it, which is what they do now. Good thing about Google is they usually release quite soon after they announce stuff, which some people don't. But their answer, at least for the shopping part, is a universal cart, right? So I can go to Amazon and add a lip gloss, and then bounce to whoever else, Sephora, and add another lip gloss, and then I can buy all my lip glosses.
So complicated.
Yeah, but in the travel aspect, right? I can buy my flight now over here, which I don't want to hit go on until I've made sure the hotels are available. Add it, and then potentially add my hotel, and then make sure my Taylor Swift concert tickets are available, and then hit go in one go, so it all lines up.
How does that actually work? Is it like a widget across different websites? Is it like a kind of Shopify integration? How are they actually making sure that basket stays open on all these different unrelated sites?
I'll send you the Google slide that they demoed it on with the screenshots.
Yeah, I'd like to see that myself.
Yeah, I don't know, because it is, each of those comes with options, right? Each of those comes with choose a seat and add insurance and all these other things. Is that then part of one big checkout experience where you get the different options from the different place? I don't know.
And who handles the payment breakdown? I mean, can Stripe do something like that where there's payment going out here, here, here?
Well, Google can, right? Google Pay can handle that. If I'm buying a United flight here and then a Marriott hotel here, I could potentially give them $1,000 and they just have two separate transactions. I'm sure that part's doable, and yeah, Stripe could definitely do that as well.
Yeah. It definitely seems like it's just one more, like everything they're doing just gets them closer and closer to owning the entire travel experience from start to finish.
Yeah.
And so, you know, something you always talk about at Arrival, Christian, is like, what do experience operators need to do to be part of that ecosystem? And you talk about, like, you know, making sure, obviously, Google My Business Profile, you know, Google Maps, responding to post. Is there anything else that businesses can do to be part of that ecosystem?
Google published not a paper, but a blog post last week on GEO, right? Generative Engine Optimization, and what you should be doing, some of the myths around it. So they did publish a whole list of things that you should and shouldn't do. The interesting thing, everyone talks about structured data, which is kind of silly because the one thing that AI doesn't really care about is structured data. It just needs data. The structured bit helps the humans make sure there's no gaps to feed it to the AI, but the AI doesn't really care if it's structured or not, as long as it's all there. But I could maybe put the link in down below that Google sent out, but they said, listen, these are the myths, these are the things you should care about, these are the things you shouldn't. You don't need the separate text file, the text LLM file. Structure is good, but it's not that important. Having a bunch of fake citations from different, it's kind of spammy, right? It's like the old link request, the link swaps. Just having a bunch of your names mentioned on random Instagram post isn't going to help you. It still do the right things, I think, mostly. Anybody else? I don't know how much, if any of you guys watched the Google stuff. Anything else jump out at you last week on the Google releases? They talked a lot about search, how that's the biggest change in search in 20 years, and nothing.
I can't say I followed it. No.
Yeah. The thing Google always does is there's so many products, right? They've got a new name now, Spark, which is their agent. And I guess that's because they've got so many teams, and the teams are all competing, and each team wants to have a product that makes it to be the next YouTube or the next whatever Drive or something. So you end up with just 50 Google products. I'm convinced that if you got your head around all the Google products, it will be better than Claude or ChatGPT or anything if you actually knew how it all worked together. But I don't think any human is capable of getting it all to work together.
Well, I think that's a big criticism that I've been seeing online recently a lot, is how siloed everything feels from Google at the moment. They are releasing so many new products, and there is so much scope for kind of, collaboration between all of those products, but it feels like they're just kind of so disjointed. And I've seen a lot of people online talking about that, and I think it's interesting. Apparently the reception from Google has actually been quite good, and they're actually taking that time to understand what people are saying from an external point of view about all these releases that they're doing, and how they can actually start, as you say, Christian, like once you stitch everything together, it's basically, it will be like, the best solution out there. It will be better than Claude or GPT. But right now, everything is just kind of like, a Frankenstein, and how can you bring that together?
I think there's probably also an element of self-censorship, of like keeping their head down, because I'm sure they're very, very scared about being broken up. When you actually like start to take that step back and realize, how much of your life they interact with, and how much control they have, and like, how much impact they have. And I'm sure that they have some models behind them. Like, I'm sure they're sitting on some pretty incredible tech, which they are maybe, playing the smart game and saying, all right, Anthropic, ChatGPT, everyone's like claiming the headlines. But I think slowly they are starting to like put all these products into circulation. Even like, their Gemini product. When they first released, everyone was like, oh, what are you going to do? Is this going to cannibalize your search products? The way they've done it is just brilliant. Like no fanfare, just like slowly drip feeding it, starting to get used to it. Now I found myself the other day typing something in Google and then just going down a Gemini rabbit hole and just going, oh, well done.
Yeah, that's true. I did not think about that, Marius, but you're 100% right. That's exactly what I've been experiencing. But because I don't go to Gemini a lot unless I'm already in Google for some reason. I don't use it unless I'm there. But then like you said, you find yourself there.
I think that's the bit they've won. I'm not saying they've won, but they've been really successful. It was a year ago they kind of announced that we were all going to move to AI mode. They say they've got 1 billion users. I think it was 13 products at Google have 1 billion monthly users on them, something like that. And then I think it's 5 had more than 3 billion. It's just ridiculous. They announced that we're going to be using AI mode, and I don't think that's really happened. But Google's become more like AI mode. It's just become a hybrid. Yeah, before you know it, you're in a chat thing.
Before you know, you're in AI mode. You don't think you are, but you are.
And as Antoine said, it could easily become the super app that's what ChatGPT talking about as well. They're going to become the super app that maybe Claude probably already is for some people, but Google could easily add a little thing over here and a thing over here, and your google.com search home screen becomes everything you need if they can get there.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, I know we haven't jumped into Expedia yet, but I think that's one of the things that I think Expedia is really setting themselves up to be the plumbing for AI agents. That's why, I mean, they're moving into B2B in a big way. They're acquired tickets, they acquired car trawler. They want as many, you know, they're obviously involved with TikTok Go now, they've ChatGPT. They want to be the plumbing so that when AI agents are searching around, they're going to find their product. I feel like that's what's going on with them. They're working towards that, and they're making some serious headway.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Expedia. That's probably where they should be going. They canceled Romy, didn't they? Romy was their chatbot.
Yeah, it launched a couple of years ago at the Expedia conference. You probably tried it, Christian. I tried it. Initially, it was, I mean, honestly, I've tried it a few different times and it never really, it just wasn't successful. So nobody was really using it. It was always in beta and nobody was using it. So I guess they finally decided that it was just too complicated to try to put all the pieces together. So then they decided, well, they're going to do personalization in the flights section, in the hotel section, in the experiences section. And it's kind of interesting in a way, because like we always talk about the connected trip, bringing everything together, but we still seem to find it constantly not possible in some ways, you know. And in any case, they got rid of Romy. That's done. I wasn't at the conference this year, so I know they introduced a couple of other AI tools that they're, you know, that they're looking at or they're using now, but I don't know much about them actually.
Yeah, on the B2B side, I think. Yeah, I think you mentioned personalization just to wind me up, but we can. If we can use that connected trip thing and now talk about IWander, we'd have had, that would be 3 amazing segues back to back. That'd be like the smoothest show we've ever done.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
A good segue, you don't have to talk about it being a good segue, right? It should just flow. So I've kind of ruined the whole thing. You can say that. But Expedia and Booking have both talked about the connected trip for 20 years, right? I actually ran Expedia local expert concierge desks in San Francisco for quite a few years, and that was their push into the local market. And we thought they were going to be Expedia branded desks. They weren't. They were just agnostic. We thought that was going to be the connected trip, where they'd be talking to customers during the whole trip. In my head, that's the connected trip, where you book your flight, then your hotel, then you land, and Expedia is saying, what do you want for breakfast? And Expedia is saying, jump on the bus tour. Here's a good museum to check out. People have different versions of what that means. But I thought that would be a good place for Booking and Expedia to get to, but none of them even got close to any of that. And now Booking talks about connected trip, of buying 2 products, a bundle, which I think is just the weirdest thing.
We've had connected trip for years. It's called packaged holidays. It's called travel agents. It's called, you know, we've had connected trips for like a million years. We just never called them that. I mean, obviously, I know what you're talking about. Online connected trips, something you can just, you know, click a button and you're good. Yeah,
the TUIs of the world must have been watching this for 20 years, thinking, "What are you talking about? This has been happening."
Yeah.
Let's talk about what I think the connected trip is this in-destination piece, which I find exciting. Maybe you guys could talk about how you fit into that and how you see that, either as part of the bigger picture or just as far as your product and where you start out and where it might end up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, 2 different points on that. First, the connected trip. I think it's just, Antoine mentioned silos before, but it's just about, you know, we've already mentioned so many brands where, you go on holiday, and we're speaking not about TUI, but like an independent travel. You'll go search on Skyscanner, book your flight on British Airways, get your hotel on Booking.com, buy an attraction ticket on Tickets, ask all sorts of questions on ChatGPT. There's so many different disconnected. You're basically having like so many different conversations and so many different companies at all those different points. So really, like, what is that layer which brings it all together? And I think that is the conversation and the context layer. And it's the piece which isn't necessarily the transactions, but it's like, how can you have that conversation with that traveler when they're, either pre-trip, in-trip, post-trip, the one actually owning that conversation with all that context on the traveler, I think is more likely to then be able to get that transactional piece. So we spoke about, like, Google are the ones who are going to get it, or maybe Google or the LLMs. They're the ones who can actually bring that all together, because they're the ones with all the context, all that conversation, and it's probably easier to start from there and then go for the conversion rather than the other way around. However, saying all that, like what IWander is, so just to give a little overview, we're building an AI travel companion, so basically a piece of technology that acts like your own personal tour guide whilst you're in destination. So it's a piece of tech that can build self-guided audio tours on the fly. So no matter where you are in the world, you can open the app and have that like 2-3 hour long guided experience that you'd expect from a top tour guide, and also inspiration on what to do, what to see, what to eat. And what we really focus on is that content piece. So how to engage that customer. So like what we measure as success is minutes spent per trip on the app or using our platform. And what we do is that we offer this as an SDK. So we plug this into other travel apps, so they can go from basically conversion apps or booking apps to an app that can actually engage that customer throughout their entire trip. So that's kind of how we're solving that connected trip piece for travel brands. We're actually giving them the tool to engage that conversation, that traveler, have that conversation, have that guidance, and like actually keep that conversation going with that customer throughout the entire trip.
Yeah, and if I could just add on that, it's all those names that Marius spoke about, all those big travel brands that you can use at some point, during your trip. Most of it will probably be pre-trip, but if you guys look at your phone right now, I'm sure that you have, most of those apps downloaded on your phone, and you only ever really use those apps when you are, preparing for your trip. And then they might give you some utility. For example, British Airways, you can scan your boarding pass. You use it at that point. You've got some utility out of the app, and then you won't use it until you get back to the airport. So they already have space on your phone. You have some form of kind of attachment to that brand, but they are not leveraging kind of that opportunity to engage you during those 4 days in Rome or wherever it might be. So that's a big kind of target for us, is engaging that customer through those brands.
Can you provide an example of somebody that you're working with right now and what that actually looks like?
So we launched with City Sightseeing, so the big hop-on, hop-off operator, and really kind of like the use case that they were looking at was maybe a bit more of a micro one compared to the macro one I just spoke about with British Airways. But it was basically, once someone gets off their bus, they don't know what they do. They completely lose that customer, and sometimes they sell a 48-hour pass and they come back. The user might come back the next day, get back on the bus, and then once again they leave and they don't see them again. So we plugged our technology inside of their app about 6 months ago, and we've seen kind of an adoption rate of 25% for our technology across all their downloads, which is really, really promising. But what it allows City Sightseeing to do is continue that conversation with that customer once they get off the bus. And what we've seen, which is really, really interesting, is from the data, is City Sightseeing have started to understand a lot about the questions that these customers are asking once they get off the bus and where they're actually going. Before, they thought that they might just jump off the bus around Paddington and, stay around there. But from the data, what they've noticed is a lot of customers going up to Abbey Road. which they didn't know previously. So then the question for them becomes, not just having that data, but then how do you kind of try and leverage that? Can you find a product for Abbey Road? Can you maybe be the only bus tour that goes up and brings the customers to Abbey Road? So that's kind of one of the examples. Anything to
add? No.
So you've got and city sightseeing is a great example. So that's building the connected trip from the bottom almost, right? You're helping them build that. Because city sightseeing, I always thought, should have been the in-destination app as well. Everyone should be the in-destination app. Maybe only Google's really succeeded at building that. But can all these companies? I mean, the airline is an interesting example. Should British Airways be the one building a connected trip? Is that just a vanity project for them to have more touch points? Is that going to help their brand?
No.
British Airways is a bit different to an OTA, right? An OTA is much more relevant to that.
Well, I think there's a big difference between the connected trip and actually maximizing the engagement of each user, because the reality is that all these brands are actually really successful at getting people to download their app, but people never use that app in destination. So all of these brands could actually engage and give a bit more value to all these customers through their app, whether that's through deals, whether that's through guidance, whether that's through personalized recommendations. And they're not currently doing that. So what we can basically do, we can increase that engagement time per user on your app, keep them using it. And you might not do the whole connected trip, but it means that next time you go on holiday, you'll probably be more likely to, you'll be top of mind, and you might be more likely to book with City Sightseeing or British Airways to be able to have that, holistic experience within the trip. So, I mean, there's two ways. There's the full connected trip, and there's just about actually engaging your users a little bit more once they're in their trip. We're starting with that because I think the full connected trip, let's be honest, only Google's going to win that.
So the customer using a BA app, for instance, is going to leave the airport, and all of a sudden there's a notification that pops up on their app that says, "Hey, where are you headed today?" Or, do you want to take a taxi? Do you want to take an Uber? Do you want to take, how are you going to get to your hotel? Okay. Did you know your hotel's right near blah, blah, blah. So does the brand, I'm assuming the brand that you're working with is creating the experience that they want the customer to have, whether that's just helping them understand how to get from point A to point B, or now you have the opportunity, as you said, to monetize this further. So if you're La City Sightseeing, then you're obviously going to try to, hey, I see you're at Abbey Road. By the way, we've got this great, cool tour. If you click here, you can buy it. So the brand is essentially creating the experience, and you have certain parameters within how they can actually create that experience.
I would say actually the brand brings the content, the data, and the context on that traveler, or those kind of specific data points. We build that experience. So what we basically do is we customize that product per partner. So City Sightseeing, it'll be a hop on, hop off. We will not know, where their hotel is. So we'll kind of stay away from that, and it'll be more once you're in destination, once you're going past points of interest or cool walks. That's where you can notify, or when you're on one of the bus tours, we can say, hop off here, do an audio walking tour, and then they start using it. If it's, for instance, let's say someone who we don't work with Trip.com, but if it's Trip.com who sell a flight and a hotel, we will have those data points. So we'll know when that customer arrives in destination, we'll know where their hotel is. We've got those connections with, for instance, Uber or public transport. So we can actually push that notification and say, you're 50 minutes away from your hotel using public transport. Click here to see the quickest route. And we can start that as the kind of the onboarding point for that customer. So yeah, it really depends on the customer. And we basically build custom models for each partner we work with.
There's a lot of chat, isn't there, again, around the super app. It's funny that we mentioned it earlier. Now Uber's becoming the super app again, which it always should have been. So I think for them, it's good. Airbnb, that's a bit of a stretch, but they want to be the super app as well, and the new social network thing, and whatever else they're doing. What I maybe no one knows the answer to this, but what does a Chinese traveler do? We all know, I don't think we all know, but we all know that WeChat and a couple of others are big in China. What does a Chinese traveler do as far as their maps and in-destination stuff? Do you know? Is maps all part of WeChat, and are they staying within that, and do they have their own self-guided things going on as part of these super apps? Have you guys looked at that?
Well, there is WeChat Travel. And I mean, I haven't used WeChat in a long time, but I used to use it. And yeah, I mean, it seems like you can buy pretty much anything you could possibly want inside of WeChat, or at least that's what I felt like when I was using it. But I think it definitely has maps, and can direct you directionally. And probably, I'm sure, sells tours and activities. No doubt. Klook is actually inside WeChat. I know that.
Right.
So yeah, that would actually be a good test case or use case. Probably you guys have already thought of that, especially with your sister working with TikTok.
Well, Google owns maps and probably always will, right? So you have to put that on the side. We're always going to jump out. I shouldn't say always, but I feel like we're always going to jump out and use Google Maps when we need to get to a place. It's almost like inbuilt now. It's part of our brains, right? We can't find something if it's not on Google Maps.
And this
Or
is
Apple Maps.
Or Apple Maps. But this, so yeah, I mean, luckily Laurie's here because I know nothing about the Chinese customer or Chinese tourist, what apps they use. But what we really position ourselves is against Google Maps, because Google Maps is the #1 travel app worldwide. But if we compete on their game, like, we'll never win, because it's basically the best navigation tool, the best kind of like search tool. So what we've positioned ourselves is a content tool which is layered on top of a map. So yeah, that's really where we work well. And then that navigation piece, for instance, which Laura, you mentioned about how do I get to my hotel, we basically add these little features on top. Like, you know, we basically use SDKs which already exist. We bring them into our platform, and we basically use that as like, okay, what added value can we bring to that customer, whether it's, you know, an airline who asks us for this, or also like, how can you think about a good entry point to show them the real power of the tool, which is the content and the guidance piece, because that's something Google Maps don't do currently, and we'll see when they do launch it. But yeah, that's how we approach it.
Yeah, Google's got so much good tech that I think the best travel app there ever was actually Google Trips, and they just canceled it years ago, right? It was such a good app, but you just need them to just wake up one morning and think, oh, we need some self-guided audio stuff. Here's a check, $1 billion is enough. That'll keep you guys happy, and then move on, right?
Yeah.
Is that the big plan?
Maybe they'll build it in 6 months.
Yeah, it could go either way. Cool. All right, I think we're getting to the end of time here. We have a hard stop. Should we? I don't know how to do a lightning round with 2 people. It's going to take like another half hour. Should we split the lightning round, Laurie, between them?
No, we have enough time to find out. There's only 2 of them. That's cool. Okay. We can do it.
If you guys can speak quickly, we'd appreciate it. Lightning round it's 2 questions each, and it's 3 answers for each thing. So that's a lot. That's 12 things. Each of you, 3 best countries you've been to, and you can define best however you like.
Ooh.
Okay, I've got it, I think.
Yeah, go on. You go first. But I've got I'll go first because I've got a feeling you'll say the same ones. I'm going to say Japan. Brilliant culture, great people. Cuba. Went to Cuba 10 years ago. Absolutely loved it. Brilliant place. And I'll finish with Ireland. Has to be done.
I'd say Lebanon. Just in terms of the warmth of the people, the culture, how much like different things there are to do, the food. Ghana, I was so surprised by how beautiful that country is. It's got a bit of everything. And then Italy. I mean, I can just go to Italy. I could go to Rome every 2 months for the rest of my life and never get bored.
Excellent.
Nice. I like your answers. Really like your answers. Cuba was one of my favorite places too. absolutely loved Cuba. Really want to go back, but maybe not right now.
Yeah.
Probably not the best time to go back to Cuba.
No. All right, take apart 3 countries you haven't been to, but at top of your list for wanting to visit.
Yeah. You go first this time.
I think Mexico, Norway, and Russia. Russia, I'd love to do the Trans-Siberian Express. I don't know, like, always wanted to do that. Mexico, I've never been, but it's just like the mix between, once again, kind of cultural, old historical sites. I think you can get so deep into those like ancient civilizations. And Norway, just, I've seen, well, this maybe goes back to the TikTok, Instagram stuff, but I think that I've just seen so many like beautiful photos and videos of it that, especially recently, that I'd love to go visit.
Cool. Mexico's my #1, and Norway's in my top 5 as well, so it's good.
Yeah, I was going to put Mexico, but I'll drop it. Norway, definitely. New Zealand. I've heard so many good things. Beautiful place. And then China as well. I think would be really cool.
Cool.
Excellent.
You got some traveling to do then.
Yeah.
Excellent. I forgot the name of the book. I'm just in the middle of a book about China. I forgot the name of the author. That's not going to help. But it basically compares the economies and the cultures of China and the US. Break something. Very sort of tech focused and economy focused, and just really interesting. Talks about how the Chinese are amazing engineers and can build stuff really quickly, and Americans are really good at lawyers and putting regulations in and not building stuff. And the answer is in the middle, right, where you can have a bit of both. But I'll maybe try and post the link. But a really excellent book. It's been great. Thanks for joining, guys. What's the best way to get hold of you guys if you want to reach out and talk more about IWander?
So just before that, we actually launched our iOS standalone app today. So anyone can go actually check out that tech, build their own self-guided tours in time for summer. So go check that out. So IWander, IWander on the app stores. And if you want to get in touch with us, best place is LinkedIn. So search for our names on LinkedIn and message us there.
Excellent. Final. Are you confident with France in the World Cup, or do you think England's going to take it? What are your guesses for that?
I'm too worried for the big game on Saturday, Arsenal PSG. That's my first priority. But I think France will have a good chance this year. It's looking good.
How do you feel?
I feel confident. We left a couple of big players at home for England, but we've got a squad that matches anybody's. It's how you show up on the day. We're definitely in with a shout. We'll see. Laurie could talk about US, but that's not going to be.
No, actually, I'm just looking forward to going into Boston and meeting all the Scots because that's my heritage. So I'm just planning on sitting myself at a couple bars and just having some really good conversation.
That'll be fun.
Better than the game.
All right, cool.
Thanks a lot, guys. Been great. Appreciate it, and talk to you guys soon.